everybody. I'm Ashley Jones, and I'm here for your next lesson in our Software Success Live. So I'm excited to be here with you today. We are going to create a design in our software program today. I'm going to be using Word Art and Stitches, but you can do what I'm going to show you in other dime programs. So remember that each time you are looking to watch our Software Success, remember, even if you don't have the exact piece of software that I'm using, I'm still doing things that you probably could do in your software program if you have another piece of dime software. So I think you're going to love the demonstration today. We got a lot of things incorporated in a couple of little designs to teach you. So I see everybody piping in. So excited to see everybody. I see some familiar names of some frequent flyers. So I'm so glad that you guys are joining us again. So Jeanette Yeager, thanks for joining. She's from South Carolina. We have Dawn from O'Fallon, Missouri, looks like. And so thanks for joining, Dawn. And EW, can't stay and watch all these videos be available later? Yes. Will they be available later? It absolutely will. If you go to our dzgns.com YouTube channel or the Facebook, you can click on past lives and get to back to this video. That's a great question to get started. So hello, Jana. Thanks for joining. And so we got Maxine from Arizona, and we've got Carolyn from Cumberland Plateau. We have Dennis from Rainy Day, Arkansas, in Arkansas. So it's a good day to be in playing with your software, I think, right? So thanks everybody for joining. So Arlene says she is ready for a great class. Thank you, Arlene. I think you're going to enjoy this. I've picked out a couple of designs that are spring related, and so I think you guys are going to love this if you're doing some stitching for spring, maybe for Easter. So I see some familiar. I see Mary Ann. Thanks for joining us for today. For Marianne, she's a frequent flyer, I know. And Ann Philbeck, I see that she is here. Thank you so much. Cindy and Barbara, so many people. Thank you guys for being here. So are you guys already stitching for spring? So are you starting to do some of your spring stitching and get out of the winter stitching? So tell me that over in the chat. So I'm excited for spring. So it's one of my favorite seasons for sure. Everything's blooming and beautiful. So nice. So thank you for joining, Sharon. Hey, Sharon. Thank you for joining from North Texas. So thanks, Mary Ann. And so she said she loves all my classes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So okay, so we are talking about Word Art and Stitches again today. So I did that last week. We kind of did some getting started. And so this week, I'm going to take it a step further. So we're going to be still manipulating text, which remember you can do in any dime software that has a text option, or if you have the text font packs individually, you can do the same things I'm going to show today where we're manipulating the text. But we're going to incorporate some designs with our text, and I've got a couple of different options for you. This cute little bloom design that you see, we're going to replace the O with those flowers, and we're going to use a true type text, and I'll tell you what that is all about also whenever we get in there. So fun little design. So I'm going to do two designs today in Word Art and Stitches. I'm going to do that cute little bloom example. And notice in my BL and my M, I actually have a fill that looks glittery. Have you guys been following us and using any of the Shimmer and Shine sets? Those are the sets that have Caesar HTV that we have been using in some of our applique. So we actually have those little glitter chips built into the software that you can use to audition in your applique design. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well if you've been following. And I'm going to do this cute little peeps design. So I love peeps. I know that some people are disgusted by them, but I think they are good. I love all that sugary coating. Who doesn't love sugar? So are you a peep fan, or are you, don't like peeps? So tell me that over there. So we're going to make these two designs. And again, don't forget, so what I'm going to be showing you today, both of these designs you could achieve in other dime software. I am using Word Art and Stitches, and so I'm specifically borrowing the peeps and the two flowers from Word Art and Stitches, but everything else that I'm showing, you can actually do in other pieces of dime software if you have text. So that's the beauty of these software success is that you're learning in one program, but you can apply it to your other programs. So Linda Strauss says, no thanks on the peeps. So I know I definitely think it's a not a taste that everybody loves, but we do have some peep lovers. So Carol says that she loves peeps, and also Jewel loves peeps. Ruth Ann says she loves peeps too. So, and Jennifer Alexander, thanks for joining, Jennifer. She's another frequent flyer. So, and Claire, thanks for joining from Pensacola. I have family in Pensacola. So, and then Marianne peeps, oh, too sugary for me. They are sugary, but I only eat them once a year. So we can all have a little bit, a few times a year. So, and Jewel, so do I, Carolyn. So she was agreeing with Carolyn on that she loves the peeps. So I definitely, and then we have lots of people joining in. So I love that. Okay, so I'm going to head over to my Word Art and Stitches. Let's just get right to it. And then, of course, I'll stop along the way and answer your questions. Do me a favor. Again, you guys have been really good. Put the question marks before you ask a question, and then that just helps me pick it out of the lineup. And then that gives me the opportunity to answer as many as I can come across. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. It's super helpful. Okay, so let's start with the bloom where you're planted. I think that's a cute little saying for spring, right? And so let me flip over. I've got the design here. So I have a combination of, I have a script font, I have a true type font, I have an applique font, and we have these flowers. So let's get started with how we're going to build that. So I'm going to go over to my blank page, and then I'm going to start with the applique text. Remember, we've got tons of text built into Word Art and Stitches. And so I'm going to start with the applique text, and then when I clicked, I'm zoomed really close in. That's why I only see part of it. Do you guys remember the tip that I gave you it's been a couple of months now, to double click your zoom tool and it will bring everything onto the screen. So double clicking your zoom tool, it works in every one of Dime's software. So now let's type in our text. So I'm going to do BL and then M because I want to put the two flowers where the O's would normally be. So I'm going to just put BLM, and then I'm going to click apply. Now that is the font that I want to use. It's my favorite applique font, but I want to give you a tip. So if you click on this AABB right here where my cursor is, and you can see the font option. So these are all the applique fonts, and you could just select one and say, okay. Now, what I like to do, because I don't always know which one looks the best in my chosen text, and so I start at the top of the list. Instead of clicking here, I click on the drop down list and I start at, the top or wherever. And notice how it's highlighted blue. That means that window is active. So if I push the down arrow on my keyboard, it will cycle through those texts, and I can see my exact letters that I am going to be using in that font. So I can choose easily which one I want. If we're looking at them from the picture, I can see what the A and the B look like, but I don't see what the L and the M look like. So that's one of my favorite things, is to choose from the drop down list. When it is highlighted in blue there, it's active. You can then scroll down using your down arrow key and then back up using your up arrow key. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to use this text, the Frank applique it's called. And I'm going to set this. Now I've pre-created this design, so I know that I want my font to be 1.5 inches. So I'm going to choose that there, but we're going to talk about resizing on the screen visually as well. So I'm going to make it 1.5 inches and click apply. Now I want to put those two flowers between the L and the M. So I'm going to use this double arrow that you see on the screen. That is the kerning option. Now I just clicked my select tool. Remember the difference in your select tool and your text tool. When you click the select tool, you have these boxes for resizing and rotating around. But when you have the text tool selected, you can see that there's an A attached to my cursor, and I can then use different features around my text. And that text tool is what brings up this double triangle here. So I can click this double triangle and just push my M out of the way. And remember, I'm going to double click my zoom tool. That brings everything back into perspective. So now I've left a gap where I can put those two flower pieces. So, and then Wendy says, when you make the bloom design with the software, automatically keep track of the font name that is used. Yes, Wendy, it does, as long as you save in the C2S file. If I head back over to my pre-created design, if I click on bloom, you can see that it shows up here that it's the Frank applique. That's because I brought in a C2S version of this design, and you can see it actually right down here in the name. In my tab, it says Bloom Facebook Live C2S. And so if you save it as a C2S, it will remember the text type that you used, which is super helpful. And I'll show you after we save this, because I have a couple of other information about saving your design too. So that's a really good question. Thank you, Wendy. And then Cindy says, is this software on sale today? So Wendy, we're just showing features, so we don't have like anything special. So what I would recommend is check with your local dealer. Your local dealer is going to be able to give you the best price on this program. If you don't have a local dealer, then certainly, you can check on our dzgns.com. But our dealers that are Inspiration Software dealers can give you an even better price. So there's a dealer locator on the site too that you can take a look at. So I'm just here for the education, but of course, if you like it, we certainly would love if you owned it. Okay, so now I've scooted my M out of the way. And so now I'm going to change the color of this bloom. And so let's make it kind of this turquoise color here. So down here at the bottom, I just did a right mouse click on the color chip. So if you right mouse click with it selected, it'll change the color. So right mouse click and it'll set that color. And now the other thing that you can do is you can audition anytime you have an applique. You can audition fabric in that applique if you want. So in my letters here that I have selected with my text tool, over in my properties, I've got this icon that looks like a little swatch of fabric. So if I click that, and then I click this options ellipse button, I have a fabric library. Now, you can build your own fabric library if you like, but with your software install, you do get these to play with. And also we have added the Caesar HTV, which is actually part of our shimmer and shine sets that match our metallic, our Kingstar metallic. So, and you can also change the scale. That's a little large. So I actually just reduced it to see what that's going to look like. So look at that. Isn't that cute? So now let's grab our flowers. So now I'm trying to just use what's in the software so that, you can reproduce this if you have Word, Art, and Stitches. And in this text design collection, these are miniature designs that you can incorporate in your design however you want. Now, if you have Word, Art, and Stitches, you have these text fonts. And if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, you have them. So I'm going to use this flower that is partway down our list here. And click OK, and it puts it on my workspace. Now, this is a little small for what I want to work with. I want it to be, replacing the O. So I'm going to resize it, and I just click and drag. And when I do that, the software does recalculate the stitches. So that makes sure that my design's going to still stitch out well when I resize it. So now I actually need a little more space for my second flower here. So I'm going to go back to my text tool, and then when I select, see how my options come up. So I can actually push that M a little further out. And I'm going to double click the zoom to bring it back in place. Okay. So now with my select tool, I'm going to select the flower. I'm going to do a copy, a paste, and then just move that over. So now I have two of those. Okay. Now I wanted to change the color of the flower, so we'll do that. But one thing I would recommend is if you select everything on your screen and click the top align option, it'll push your flowers all the way up to the edge so that it, is in the spot where that O would be. And of course, you could make these bigger if you'd like. So that's really up to you. Okay, so now I want to change the color of the flower. So I'm going to ungroup because they are grouped together. And over in my sequence view down here to the bottom right, and I can, now that it's ungrouped, I can select just the orange part and then right mouse click on a different color option. So let's choose maybe a dark pink there. So that looks cute. I love that. And then I'm going to take this flower here and also ungroup so that I can select the orange of the flower, and let's make that purple. So I'm using some spring colors here. Okay. So easy, right? So now I'm going to add the text that says where you're planted, and I'm going to do two different texts here. So I'm going to go back to my text tool up here in the top left. We use the applique text first, and this one I'm going to use the regular text tool. If you're in Perfect Embroidery Pro or another dime software that has text, all your text is in one spot. Word, Art, and Stitches, they're broke up into the categories. And so I'm going to click on the the letters here, the yellow letters, so it opens up my catalog. And then let's just do this cursive one here. I think this is a pretty one. It's one of my new favorite ones. And I'm going to say, we have bloom. So I'm going to say I'm going to do your apostrophe you are, but you could do you are if you'd like. And I want this to kind of fit to the left of my flowers here. So I'm going to resize it. So now I have choices. I could click and drag this smaller. I could put in an exact measurement over here. If you already know you want it to be a 1/2 inch, you could put that measurement in there. But I think that's a nice size, but I do want it to be a little bit narrower so that it doesn't stitch so far over my leaves there. Okay, so now I've got my text. So let's make this a different color. I'm going to choose the yellow here. And now we just need our last text planted. So for this one, I'm going to use a true type font. So true type text is the list of text that's on your computer that is not in your embroidery software. Our embroidery software does see the list, but it does not, it has to auto digitize them. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to say planted, and then I'm going to click apply. And then I'm going to check mark this TT. That gives me a list of text that's on my computer. So this is where Word or, your Adobe products might pull your text. And so it's actually a true type text. I'm going to zoom in here to show you. And what the software is doing is it's auto digitizing that font for you. So when I tell you that it's auto digitizing, not every font is going to be perfect because the computer is doing the best it can. Any of the built-in text into our software, those have been digitized by a embroidery digitizer. So those are going to stitch out beautifully and work great every time. But this is an easy way for you to have more fonts. And a lot of times you can download these for free. Now, when you have this TT checked, you have the option for artwork or satin. And you can see now that's artwork that is not going to stitch out. But then when you choose satin, the software is automatically converting what you see there to embroidery stitches. And you can see that it's not the best in some of the spots, but hey, you can't complain. It's doing a great job, right? And so you can actually choose from this list. And that one actually looks like it did a fantastic job on that one. And I'm going to use this one here. I think is a cute one, this Bernard. Now this true type list font list, you may have totally different fonts than I have on my software, on my computer. So you may not have these exact ones. These are ones that I have either purchased or I have downloaded for free and installed. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you're going to have the same true type list as me, but a lot of them you will because a lot of them are used by Word and, like I said, your other programs. So I'm going to double click to zoom out and see what we look like here. And then I'm going to stretch this a little bit longer. And then let's change the color. I'm going to use that same pink there. And I just selected it and I right mouse clicked to set that color. Now, just to kind of fill in this space here a little bit, let's do some editing. So Word Art and Stitches actually has some editing capabilities, and you can do this in our other Dime software that has the ability to ungroup and adjust the design. So I'm going to select the stem and then just click and drag that down. And notice the difference in my cursor. So right now my cursor is a pointer. When I hover over one of these, it turns to an arrow. That means it's ready for me to click and drag that wider. So I could make that wider if I wanted. But notice when I hover over the center, it looks like a hand. Whenever you get the hand, if you click, it allows you to move it. Okay, so that's your different pointer types that's coming up as I click. So now I want to move this leaf here down a little bit just to kind of, again, fill up some of the space, but I need to pick out the parts and pieces that I need. So I'm going to click on the leaf one time and it actually highlights over here in my sequence view which piece that is. And then I'm going to just click on these and watch where it highlights. So that satin is that part of the leaf. What I'm trying to do is I want to grab the entire part. I need to grab the underlay and everything. So I'm watching to see what is highlighted. So that's the very tip there. As I scroll up, you can see that box is moving through the leaf. So I need to make sure I select all of these parts. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here coming up. So starting at the beginning, if I were to just click here and I move this down, you can see that I've left behind my underlay pieces of my design. Also the traveling stitch that probably runs up to connect these. So what I'm doing by selecting over here, I'm going to do my undo key. So what I'm doing by selecting in my sequence view is I can select every part of the design. So what I did was I clicked on the first one that I found. It actually highlights over here. I'm going to hold down my shift key and press my arrow key. Shift and then press the arrow key. And do you see it's highlighting and it's keeping the previous selection? So I want everything to be selected. And then that last one, do you see how my box jumped over? So now I know I've got a part selected that's not part of my leaf. So now everything is selected. I can click this leaf and then drag that down. And now that just kind of fills in my space there. So does that make sense? So super easy way to edit a design. And again, I'm working in Word Art and Stitches, but you can do this in Perfect Embroidery Pro and other software that ungroup when you have a built-in design. Now I'm working with this design from the text designs, which is built into Word Art and Stitches and Perfect Embroidery Pro. So I see Joanne Banco has joined. Thanks, Joanne. So good to see you. And so Kathy Bruce Purdy says, what is the glittery stuff that you named? So the heat transfer vinyl from Caesar is a product that we have paired with our Kingstar metallic thread called Shimmer and Shine. So it gives you a Kingstar metallic thread and a matching piece of heat transfer vinyl that we have incorporated in applique. So, and I'm actually going to be using it in some other ways. If you'll join this week on the Between Friends Facebook Live, I'm actually going to be using that with my friend Stephanie from Caesar. So we'll talk more about that as well. So I missed where you got the flowers. So Bet Cooley, my friend from Arizona, up here in the text designs, Bet, if you click there, it's a built-in little text design. So it's miniature designs, and I grabbed that flower there. Those text designs are built into Word Art and Stitches and Perfect Embroidery Pro. Good question. So, and Lynn Latham says she loves Dime. Thank you, Lynn. Oh, that makes my heart melt. I love that. And then Janet Val says, I made a personalized chair cover using one letter for 26 High Desert Red Hat ladies for their upcoming annual convention in September. So 1-inch letters, she said. So that is awesome. So thank you for sharing, Janet. I wish we had a way to share pictures. I'd love to see that. And then Mary Thomas says you could delete the leaf on the smaller one that is close to the wording. That is so true. So this is what Mary is referring to. So I could select this leaf and then press the delete on my keyboard, or you could do the cut. And again, you want to remove that underlay. So select it and then press delete, select, delete, select, delete. And so that's another really great way to edit the design. So now I'm going to the end of the stitch. So let me do an undo here. And I'm just going to the end because these I can tell are jump stitches because they're straight. And that's the stitch there at the end. So when I clicked on that stitch and then clicked the delete on my keyboard, you can see that it pulled it completely away because it was just a jump stitch, and I can delete that one too. And if we zoom back out, great idea, Mary. I love that. So thank you. Really good one. So that's what we're here for, right? We learn from each other. So love that. So there's your first cute little design for spring that you can create. Really simple. And I just, we've used applique text. We use built-in digitized fonts, and we also use true type text in this one design. We use this flower, we edited that flower, and we filled that with that built-in option for auditioning your fabric. So simple, right? Okay, so if you have questions, let me know. And then we're going to go on here and do another spring design with my favorite peeps. So, but just remember, even though I'm showing you the peeps, those out there that don't love those peeps, you can certainly use a different design. Okay, so the next design, let me show you what I'm going to do here. So this one, we're going to see how to put our text on a circle path. I'm going to show you how to, with just a couple of clicks, make your embroidery machine change these colors. So instead of a solid color text, it's going to stop and let me put a different color for each letter. Isn't that cute? And then also the peeps that I use don't have eyes and a nose. So I'm going to show you where I got that from. Okay, so let's go to our new page here. Now, do you guys remember from last week where we talked about this bubble text? So let me just show you here. So bubble text is a feature built into Word Art and Stitches where you can choose a shape, any of these built-in shapes, whatever you want it to be. Let's go here to the chocolate bunny. How cute is that? And you can enter your text. And when you click, it fills the shape with your text. Okay. And here's another tip for you. You don't even have to put text in here. So I'm going to go back. Let's choose our peeps here. I can actually put no text by deleting the words here. And from the border option, I'm going to choose applique and click apply. And it just created these peeps with no text as an applique design for me. And I can say, okay, I don't have to fill them with text. So it's really, really an awesome program in that sense. Okay, so I've got my peeps all ready to go, but I want them to be a different size. So remember, I can click and drag, or I can go over here to my properties and I can enter the size that I want. So I'm going to make these 4 inches wide, and it will maintain the aspect ratio and resize them for me. Okay, so we've got those a little bit smaller there. So now the next thing I want to do, I want to change the colors. Now on here on the bottom of my my color chips down at the very bottom, I only have the one color. And so I'm going to change that color from the blue, and I'm not sure why it chose 60 weight, but we don't need 60 weight thread. I want 40 weight exquisite. And then I'm going to start with the color that I want. And then I'm going to add color chips. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's do 6 colors. And then I'm just going to do a left mouse click, and I'm going to change these to some spring colors that we could use. So maybe we'll do like a lavender. We'll change this to a lighter green. For the orange, let's do like a kind of a turquoise blue. The yellow is good. And then I'm going to make their eyes black. So I'm going to change this to a black color. So there are my colors. Now I want to change my peeps. Now look at this. This is something that you really want to pay attention to. Here, I've got my peeps on the screen. And when I go over here to my sequence view and I click the plus, it says that is an applique, but it doesn't give me 3 separate appliques. It only gives me 1. So if I change the color, it's going to change all 3 of them, whereas I want 3 separate color peeps. So here's what you need to do in this instance. Do a right mouse click and choose break apart. When I choose the break apart, it actually separates these as 3 different applique. So now when I click on one of these, I can choose the color because they are now separate pieces. So now I have 3 different color peeps. Now, the other thing I want to point out here is because we're creating in the software, it has applique as the stitch type. When you save this to your machine format, it will automatically break that up into one run stitch for the tack down, and then also give you that finishing stitch. And we're going to talk about changing that as well. So now I'll show you a little bit more about what I'll mean. I'll actually save both of these designs in a C2S and then a machine format so you can see what I mean. Okay, now the next thing that I want to do personally is I want these to be a little bit further apart. So I'm just going to space those out. And then I'm going to select all of them and I'm going to use my alignment to either top or bottom align to make sure that they are straight. And now this one, I'm going to nudge to the right. Remember I told you to nudge, you click and then hold down your control key and then hit your arrow key and it'll nudge your design for you. Okay. So now I've got my peeps. Love that. Okay. So let's add some text to our peeps. So I'm going to choose my text tool again. Click one time on the screen and it puts that text for me. And now for this one, you can put all kinds of things. You know, what would you say about your peeps? So maybe you would say Happy Easter. Maybe you would say, I love peeps. That's what I want to say. But for this one, I'm going to say hanging with my peeps. So hanging with my, and I'm going to do a different text below. So I'm just going to put just hanging with my and click apply. Now, I love that text. It's actually one of my favorite built-in texts, but we're going to choose a different one. So I'm going to click here on the AABB up here. Now, notice when I hover over it, it actually pops out a little chart. It tells me which letters and characters are digitized for this font. And it also tells me the recommended size. So I'm going to click here because we're going to change it. Now I'm going to use now this font that I'm going to use the, I think it is called like a caps something. So I'm going to go down to my C. Yes, this one. So this is a built-in font into Perfect Embroidery Pro and in Word Art and Stitches. Obviously, that's what we're using today. And it's also in My Quilt Embellisher. So I click that font option. And now let's put this on a circle path over our peeps. So what I want to do is over here in my text properties, I'm going to choose the type as circle. And then once I've chosen circle, I click apply and boom, puts that on the circle path. That's easy, right? And then I am going to, whoop, I had my key held down while I was scrolling, and I'm going to then adjust this. So really it's kind of the right arc that I want, but I do want to show you how to adjust it if it's not. So you can click any of these shapes here to adjust the text. So this one will make the entire circle smaller. You can see I have more of an arc. This one allows me to adjust the circle to an oval, and you can see then I have less of an arc here. This one, you can see it pushes my text further around, so it's essentially making it bigger. And I'm going to do an undo there and put that back. And then this one moves it around the circle. And then I'm going to undo and put that back. So I urge you to play with all of these. They all do something different. And so now this one is pulling it around the circle without making it bigger. So each one does something completely different. Those double triangles in the middle will change the kerning just as we did with the bloom. So you can do that even if the text is not your applique text. Okay, so now the other thing I want to point out here, do you see the gap between the letters? Now, like we said, I could actually adjust the kerning by scooching in each one of these, but I'm going to do an undo. If you want to push them all together at once, over in the properties area here, just put a negative number. So I'm going to put minus, I'm going to start with 5 and see how that does and click apply. And that actually did pretty good. I maybe could do a little bit more. So if I zoom in here, you can see what's happening. Do you see it put my letters all closer together? So now I'm going to increase this to a 10 and click apply. And I actually really like that. So that puts my letters closer together. When one ends, the other one can just pick right up. Okay. So now I'm going to grab my regular select tool and you can see that my circle is no longer there. But if I need to get back to that circle, I simply choose my text tool and then click on that text, and it'll bring that circle back if you need to get those any adjusting. So now I'm gonna, whoops, sorry, I'm gonna choose to make this a different color. So I right mouse click that on the bottom for the purple. And I see we have a couple of questions. So Sue Gardner says, what is C2S or C2C? So C2S is the format that our software saves to natively. It's the native format so that you can get back to the properties and make those changes without having to kind of reinvent the wheel. And I'll save, Sue, stay tuned. I'll save it in C2S and our machine format to show you what happens when you do each one. So that's a really good question. So Ruth Ann Hansen, thanks for joining. And she says, is there a grid that could help you with aligning the peeps? It is, Ruth. That's a great point. I don't normally turn it on because since I'm showing on the screen, it kind of gets busy, but we do have the grid option. And so if you click this button over here to the left, it toggles the grid off and on. And up, if you click on your ruler bar, do you see that ruler that runs right under my icons? If I right mouse click, I can actually set those grid settings. And so you can make these adjustments if you want your grid to be spaced further apart. You've got dark lines and light lines to help you get everything lined up there. They could show as dashes versus lines. But another thing that is really helpful is this snap to grid. If you have the snap to grid on, or the guidelines or anchor points, it will snap in place. So for instance, let's do exactly what Mary is or what Ruth Ann is suggesting. So here, if our peeps are not aligned, I could select all of them like we just said and use my alignment tools here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're perfectly spaced. So you could use your grid settings for that. And if I scoot this over, you can kind of see it snap into place. I'm not doing that, but it's actually snapping when I get close. You can see it popped into there. It's snapping to that grid. So you can use that to get those perfect spaces between your peeps if you like. So, and I'm going to do an undo here and just put mine back where they were. So that's a really great point. But yeah, I usually have that off because since I'm showing on screen, it's sometimes gets a little challenging to make out what's going on. So, and then Eileen says, are the peeps available in PEP or My Quilt Embellisher? So the peeps are in the bubble text. So those are not in My Quilt Embellisher, but I'll tell you what, in both your My Quilt Embellisher and PEP, what I would do, Eileen, is I would, or Aileen, if I'm mispronouncing you, I would locate a vector file of a peep and import that into your PEP or your My Quilt Embellisher, and then it's just one click to turn that into an applique. So these were built into the bubble text, which is specific to Word Art and Stitches, but there are all ways to get free peeps. So, so check that out. If you just Google, royalty free peep vector file, you'll probably get something that you could use. So, okay. And then Jan says, is there a shortcut to get to 100%? So 100% versus to fit is different things. So I do a double click on the zoom to get it to fit. But if you want to see it at 100%, it's really just this drop down here. So from your settings, this zooms you to 100% of the size. So I'm going to zoom back out so we can see it actually change a little bit. So if I go to 100%, it pops it to that 100% what you're expected to see whenever it stitches out. So that's just the drop down there. So that's another really good question. And so then Callie says, thank you for doing 2 different tutorials on Word Stitches. You're very welcome. I'm trying to make sure that we can cover as much as we can. And we have so many software to choose from. So Alice says, hi, Alice. So Alice says, would you review how to change the color, please? Absolutely. So to change the color, when you select any item, you want to do a right mouse click on the color chip that you want to change to. So right now our bunny is the green color. If I do a right mouse click on purple, it will change that to purple. Now, if you don't, here's another way. I'm going to do an undo here. This right now is set to green, which is chip number 3. Another way to change the color, if you don't want to select from the colors that you've got below, the other option is to click on 3 and it will open up your chart. And then you can select a different color. And now my bunny is a purple, but it is still on color chip number 3, which is different than the purple on number 2. So hopefully that makes sense. So if you click on it with your left mouse, it'll allow you to change that color chip color. I'm going to put mine back to green. And you can see that this bunny is associated with chip number 3. I can tell that because there's a box around number 3. It's hard to see, but I can also click it over here and you can see in my sequence view that it says it's pulling for color number 3. So I can either change color number 3 to a different color, or I can either change the color that it's pulling from. So now if we right mouse click on number 2, you can see over here in my color sequence, it says that it's pulling from that color number 2 in my color chip. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And then, and on that same note, let's put our hanging with my peeps back to purple there. Now, let's put our text along the bottom. So I'm going to choose my text tool again. And then down here, I'm going to say peeps and click apply. And for this one, I wanted a different font. So I'm going to, one of two things. I can click and I can look through these and I can select it, whatever I want to work with. Oh, that's definitely not what I want. Or remember, choose from the drop down list. I'm just going to pick a random point here. Because this is highlighted in blue, it means my drop down window is active. So I can use the down arrow on my keyboard to cycle through the fonts. So, and that one right there looks super cute. I love that one. So I'm going to make it larger because, hey, why would we not want our embroidery larger, right? And so I have my peeps. Now remember, my peeps were all different colors for my text. So let's see how to do that. So I've got my text selected. Over in my properties, there's this little conversation looking bubble. And in that is a setting. So there's two things I'm going to show you here. One for the peeps, and I'm going to show you something here for the tie-offs as well. So where it says color change, if I change that to do a color change between every character and click apply, it's going to change every color to a different color. So isn't that cool? So, and your embroidery machine is going to stop after pink and allow you to put another color and another color and another color. Now mine pulled the colors in order because my peeps was set to pink already. And then it just picks up the next color as number 2, the next letter, as number 3, next letter is number 4. So if my peeps were set to black, watch what happens. I don't have enough color chips after, so it actually added some for me. But I want to tell you, don't get hung up on these exact colors. It is a color stop so that you can put in the color you want at the embroidery machine. If you want to audition your colors, then you want to put them in a row like I have them here and set your text to the first color. So then it will change the colors in that order. And you can, of course, add as many text as you want or as many color chips as you want to your color list by clicking this plus key to keep adding new colors. Okay, so I'm going to choose this green. I'm actually going to click on it, left click, and put it back to black because we're going to make some eyes up here. Now, that's how I changed my letters to stop after each one so I could put in a different color. But let's click on the hanging with my peeps. Do you remember I pushed those close together? So when one letter ends, it's just going to run right into the other one. So I don't need a trim in between every letter. So right now my trims are set to, if there is a stitch longer than 2 millimeters, it's going to stop and trim, which that's fine because that's not going to happen here. Or I could just tell it to trim after the capital letters, and that would cover me between the H and the A. And we also have trim between words, trim between lines, capitals, and no longer than. So if we choose no longer than 2 millimeters, then that's going to cover me if this one is too long and between my letters. So I'm going to leave that at longer than so that it will trim, but it won't trim in between those letters that are now touching. So that's going to save your machine from stopping and doing some work. So, okay, now the last part of this, and we'll answer some questions there. So Callie says, what does the F in font on the font type mean? So F in the font. So let's see what she's referring to. Oh, from this list, Callie, is that what you mean? So that list, it's kind of organized based on the type of font. So the F is your regular font types. If you scroll down and it changes to a different color when you're in PEP, it will have a lowercase m for micro, and it will have a purple, I think, P for puffy. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to change this to a micro text or select my micro text and put that on the screen. So in Word Art and Stitches, it separates the different types. So do you see that lowercase m? That designates a micro font. And if we select, say, a puffy font, and I click on the screen, you can see it has that lavender color P that designates that's a puffy font. So that's what the different colors are. In Word Art and Stitches, it breaks them out into the separate categories here. And in PEP, it'll be one long list, and it'll have those different colors for you in that font collection. All right, now let's add some eyes. Now, the easiest way to add the eyes and the nose, if you need a little bitty satin stitch, is to use the period of your text. So I'm going to choose my text tool, click on the screen, it puts my A, and I'm going to change my A to the period and click apply. Now that's a square period. So I just need to choose, I just need to choose a different text type. Okay, so I'm going to choose, I think the athletic script here, I use this period quite a bit. And so you can see now that's a circle period. So I'm going to use that for the I. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to change it to black. And then I am going to copy it. Oh, look what I just did. I'm going to undo. Remember, if you want to move it, it needs to be your hand, not the arrows. And I was in the mode where it was the arrow. So and it's snapping my eye to grid. So I'm going to do a right mouse click, and I'm going to remove the snap to grid so I can put my eye wherever I want. Okay. And then let's zoom in and get those placed where we want them. So I'm going to now copy this eye. Let's do copy, paste, and it pastes right on top. And so I'm going to pull that one over, and then let's do another paste. I don't have to copy because I already copied this one. I'm just going to do paste again, and it'll paste one right on top of the first one. And then I can move my nose there. So easy, right? So now if I hold down my control key, I can select all three of these, or in my sequence view, I can select all three of them here. And then I'm going to copy and paste all three of them together and move those here. And then I'm going to paste one more time and paste it right on top, and I can move it over here. So look at that. How cute, right? And all easy type of editing. Now, if we watch this stitch out, let's take a look, and I'm going to save these designs, and then we'll answer some questions. So you can see my placement and my tack down, and then it does the applique, placement, tack down of each of these, does my text, my peeps, and then my eyes. So I might, just me personally, it's not going to matter really either way. I'm going to put my eyes to where they stitch after the bunnies. So over here in my sequence view, if I click and I hold and I drag and I put it over the green one right here, which is the third one to stitch, and I release, it will put it right after that. Now, if I click through this, the pink stitches first, then the blue, then the green. I have no idea how that order happened, but if you want to put them in order, just click and drag to put them in the order. So now the pink, the green, the blue, and then the eyes, then my text up top, and then my text up bottom is going to stitch. Now, when I'm stitching, I do like this order because I like to start in the center and then a stitch out. So these are my centermost designs. You could even go so far as to make the green one stitch first if you want, but I like to stitch in the center first and then, work my way out, like stitch that outer text next. So Now, let me save these, and I'll show you what happens whenever you save the designs in the two different formats. So Debbie Williams says, "What is puffy font?" So thank you for asking that, Debbie. So often I just assume that we all know what I'm saying. So I really appreciate you typing that in the chat because that is super helpful, probably to others as well. So puffy text is the text that you have seen probably on like a cap that is raised. So it is specifically digitized to stitch over top of a foam. And we do have a specific embroidery foam, and it stitches over the foam and it makes those letters raised. So those are built into Word Art and Stitches. And you just lay down the foam, it stitches over it, and it makes it a really lofty, font. It actually adds some dimension to it. So that's what the puffy text are. They're specifically digitized for that. And then Mikey says, is the micro font the same as BX fonts? No, Mikey, thank you again for asking that question. When I refer to micro text, those are texts that will stitch down to 3 millimeters. Again, they have to be specifically digitized to stitch that tiny. Otherwise, you'll have thread breaks and the text won't be as legible. So this software has built in miniature fonts that will stitch down to 3 millimeters. So between 6 and 3 millimeters is what we recommend. So that's a really good question. Thank you for asking that as well. And then Lori says, what software is this? So Lori, I'm working in Word Art and Stitches. But again, these everything that I'm doing except for I did borrow the peeps from Word Art and Stitches, but the text manipulation that we were doing and the other editing is the same type of editing you can do in the other Dime software. So very good question. Okay, so now let's save these designs and see what happens. Now, actually, one more thing before we save. So this is a satin stitch applique, and I can change that if I want. So if I go over here into my properties for the applique, I have tackle twill. I can click apply. I have an E-stitch, which looks like a blanket stitch. And if you adjust the inset, it'll make your placement and your tack down line up. So I inset 0 and tack down offset 0, or I'm sorry, 100 for the inset, tack down offset 0, and then click apply. And you can see it lines up all those stitches so that you don't see them. Now, I don't love that because the stitches are really long. Now, you could shorten the width of the little blanket stitch there, but even with this small bunny, it's got some overlapping stitches here. But I think I would do either the tackle twill or the satin, but I just wanted you to know you could change the different stitch type. And we do have a motif stitch, which is a decorative stitch. So if you choose one of these, let's see here, like this one, and click apply, you can see that it gives you like a decorative type stitch around the edge. So that's a possibility too. And of course you can change the pattern length to make that a little bit smaller even if you want. So, but I'm going to stick with the satin. I really like my satin peeps. Okay. So now, and the width of my satin was adjusted. Let's click over here and see what this one was. So 3.5, I'm going to make them the same again. So I'm going to go back to my 3.5. I should have just done an undo. Okay, now we're back to normal. Let's save this in the two formats and I'll show you what they do different. So I'm going to do File, Save As. I always like to save in my C2S, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to do C2S, and then on my desktop, I have a test folder here that I'm going to use. And then now I'm going to save this same design, File, Save As in embroidery machine format. Doesn't matter which one you use, they're all going to work the same. So I'm going to choose my PES for my brother or my baby lock. I have one of each, but I do have a Viking that I saved to. I also do have a Janome. So all of those formats work. And I'm going to click Save in that same folder. Okay, so I'm going to close out this C2S file, and then now let's go File and Open, and I'm going to open the two different designs. So let's open up the PES first, and then I'm going to do File, Open, and I'm going to open that C2S. Okay, so now the PES file is the one that your embroidery machine is going to recognize. So notice when I click on my text here, even if I have the text tool selected, it's just dropping a new text. It's not selecting my entire text. It's just selecting parts and pieces of it. And the same is true for the applique. So notice it's only selecting parts and pieces of it. If I go over here in my sequence view, now this is the machine format file. Notice now, instead of one bunny, I have a placement, I have a tack down, and I have a finishing stitch, that satin stitch for each of the bunnies. It automatically broke them out for me so that my machine would stop. And now for the text, if I look at the text here, look at the peep. It's all separated into 3 different letters because it's a combination of satins and runs to make this text, okay? So now over on the peeps C2S file, take a look what I got. I have just applique here, which means that I can go back and make those same changes that we were just playing with easily. When I select the text, it remembers the text type that I was using. So if I want to change that to a different text, I just simply select a new type of text. So, and that text doesn't have lowercase letters, is why it only chose one letter there. Just like that. And the same is true for this here. If I wanted to change this to a different type of text, I just choose that because it remembers it in my PES. Now, I change this so it then put my character spacing back because it doesn't know if you want to do that with the new text. So I can go and I can reapply that to have my text stop. So that's the difference in the 2 files. So let's answer some questions here before we go. So Callie says, please review how to make the peeps and SVG so you can cut them out first before you applique them. So with this software here, so let me open up a new page here and let me put the peeps on here just in an artwork. So not all Dime software has the ability to save to those cut files. So let's just double check here because I don't want to tell you wrong. I can't think and choose. So there we go. So here's our peeps. And then I'm going to just leave them as artwork. And then I'm going to do no text and then okay. So these peeps are just artwork. If I look over here, I can see that there's no threads. It says 0 stitches and it just says artwork. So if I do a file and save as, you could save this into an artwork format if it is in your drop-down list. Okay, so from my drop-down list here, I don't have that ability in Word Art and Stitches. Okay, so I don't see my artwork options. These are all of my formats to save into for Word Art and Stitches. If you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, I'm going to activate all my software here really quickly. And if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, this is an artwork file. You could do File and Export Artwork. And you could also do Save As. And in this drop-down list, I have the option to save to SVG for my digital cutter format. If you choose the export artwork option, you can choose FCM, SVG, AI, PLT, or DXF. Now, this feature that I just showed you, that is Perfect Embroidery Pro. We also can save to those artwork formats from our patch and applique maker. Also, I think My Quilt Embellisher will do it as well. So you do have to have that option, but it does need to be artwork on your screen. So that's how you would say that. So hopefully that helps you there. So another question, Michelle says, does the PEP software include all of the separate packages like Word Art and Stitches? No, it does not. So Perfect Embroidery Pro is an individual piece. Word Art and Stitches is another individual piece, as well as all of these others. We don't have them all as one. You would just purchase any of the pieces that you want because we do allow them to be used standalone. So maybe somebody doesn't want PEP and they just want Word Art, so that's why that's the way it is. And then Marianne says, should you always take your design through the click to stitch before you save it? No, not always. Nothing is always and forever. And so if you want to take it through the click to stitch and you have created it, then that's perfectly fine. It will add the correct underlay. That's the click to stitch option here. It will add the correct underlay, push pull for the type of fabric that you choose, but don't do that if someone else has designed it and they have the correct underlay. You can also, in Perfect Embroidery Pro, put the underlay that you want rather than using click to stitch. But if you use it on someone's design that they already have the correct underlay, it doesn't adjust it, it just adds more. So that's not always the correct use. And then Natalie says, when you cut, do you expand 0.5 or such? Natalie, I do not. And the reason is, let me go back over here to our peep here. That is the PES. So I'm going to do a right mouse click and I'm going to hide all of these items. And I'm just going to start with one peep and I'm going to unhide the eye, and that's the placement. And then that is the tack down for the next one. And if we zoom in here, oh, and it's going to make a silly fool of me and it didn't do what I was going to say. Let me go over here to this one and you'll see what I mean. And so here, if I scroll through, oh, do you know why it did that? Because we made this adjustment before I saved. So let me do it on this green one. So let me hide these again. See, this is what we do at home. We all do the same thing. There we go. Because remember we did that adjustment. I was showing you how to change the offset, the inset and the out offset. I lined those stitches up. So that's why they were on top of each other on the pink one. So just like this and like that. But normally when you save from Dime software an applique, your tack down is inset, as you can see, inside of the placement line. So if you cut based on the placement line, which is the bigger of the two, then you don't have to do any adjustment because the tack down is already inset for you. So if you're working with Dime software, I don't have to adjust my cut file in any way for my appliques. I just always cut based on the placement line, which is the larger of those two. So hopefully that makes sense to you, Natalie. And then Marianne said you always take it through the click to stitch. We already talked about that one. And then Debbie says, how did you activate all? So Debbie, it's not, you have to put in a serial number for each one. But I have a way that we just do to be able to isolate different ones so I can show different features. I just basically did that for demonstration purposes, but you would have to enter your serial number for each one. And I even have to do that. That's just a quick thing for only for demo, not for using. Okay. So Jackie says, can you show how I broke up the peeps and made the letters in the different colors? So yes, in the peeps design, when you bring it in, it was all in one. So if I head back over and choose those same peeps again, so this is a review, we've already did this. And so I'm just going to do it again. And then I didn't put any text, and I chose applique and apply and okay. Now this is seen as one applique piece over here. So I just do a right mouse click with it selected and then say break apart. And then it breaks apart and makes it 3 separate appliques rather than it being one applique. And so that means that when I save this, I'm going to get a separate placement, tack down, and finishing stitch. Whereas one applique, it would have done the placement all at once, the tack down all at once, and then the finishing stitch. But I wanted 3 different colors. So this is what I had to do. Now the different colors on the text. So if I go back over here, when you have your text selected, it is under the little commands icon, and you can say change color between characters, words, or lines. So if it's normally set to none, and so if you choose it, set it to characters, it'll do a color stop between every letter. So hopefully that helps there. So, and Wendy, last question, and then I'll share with you what we're going to be talking about next week. So does PEP, the 4K software, contain all of the standalone programs like Lace Creator? And no, it does not. So Perfect Embroidery Pro is a digitizing editing program, whereas all of the other individual pieces of software that Dime makes, like here in my shopping cart list, every single one of them has a different task. So either it has one-click features that make the process easier, like Lace. You can literally make freestanding lace with just a few clicks. So if you want to digitize lace in Perfect Embroidery Pro, you would do that from scratch. So that's the difference between the ones there. So they are not all included in Perfect Embroidery Pro. And again, you may have heard me mention earlier, but if you are looking to buy any of these programs, we're not really. This is just educational here for you guys to learn. But I would definitely first and foremost check with your local dealer. If you go to our site and search a dealer that's an inspiration dealer, so a dealer locator, talk to your dealer, because the price that they can offer in the store is much better than what we have on our site. And so definitely check with your local dealer for any of the software pieces. So now, let me tell you one more thing here before we go. If you want to see what we are talking about each time we do a Facebook Live, make sure that you sign up to be notified. And you can like us on Facebook or subscribe via the YouTube channel. And then it will notify you. And then watch this little short video here. And then I will show you what I'm going to be talking about 2 weeks from now. If you want to quilt with your embroidery machine, you're going to love this. So watch this video of how to like us on Facebook.
We want to make sure you are being notified every time we go live on Thursdays at 1 p.m. And here's a quick tutorial on how you can set up your live notifications. First, on your homepage, click on the search button. Look for us. Click on the 3 little dots on our page. A pop-up will appear. Select on Manage Follow Settings. Click on Live Videos and enable notifications. Make sure they're all set to all. Now you're all set.
Awesome. So make sure that you do that so you'll be notified. And I see a lot of comments coming in. Thank you for the kind words. And so Susan says she so enjoys these classes. Thank you, Susan. I love my software. I just want everybody to love their software too. And then Wendy says, thanks for mentioning about getting it from your dealer. Absolutely. We love to support our dealers. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for our dealers. And Mary had a good point that her store gives special event pricing even when events are no longer running. So that's a good option too. So I love that. Now, next time on Software Success, I am going to be talking about my quilt planner, and that program will allow you to plan the quilting for edge to edge. So I'm going to show you how to get started with my quilt planner, and then I'm going to show you how to plan your quilting design layout on a couple of different quilt options for that program. So if you have ever quilted with your embroidery machine, but planning the design layout has been a challenge, that's what that software helps with. If you have quilted with your embroidery machine and you want to see how to plan easier, then that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. So join me in 2 weeks on April the 4th at 1 p.m. Central to talk about this program, and I can't wait to see you guys then. Until then, make sure that you like us on Facebook. Join our software user group called Dime Inspiration Software Users. You can find me over there if you have more questions between now and the 4th. Also, join me this week. I'm filling in for Eileen on Thursday, her Between Friends Facebook Live. We're going to talk about those shimmer and shine sets, but we also have some other tips as well. So if you're wondering what those are, join us over there. We got some different uses of that heat transfer glitter vinyl. So I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much for being here.